For those I haven't met, my name is Alan Katz. I've had the great privilege to go to Cognac several times, both with the BNIC and on my own, just out of general interest. If we haven't met before, I wear a few hats. I am, quote unquote, a Cognac educator, having been through the paces and a really tremendous education opportunity that BNIC hosts and produces. I'm a distillery owner and bar owner here in New York City, and much like I assume all of us together have spent more than half my life in bars and restaurants as a serviceable bartender. Back in the day, I worked in bars and restaurants primarily in the '90s, and was just in the right place at the right time, to be very honest. And it's what got me into researching cocktails and cocktail history, and ultimately distilled spirits and opening New York Distilling Company. So it's my great pleasure to be a little more formal and just to say thanks for being here. No, this is not like being in Cognac, but I am a daydreamer. I love fantasy, and I hope you all do too. And not to say that we can all just project ourselves in midwinter Cognac, or perhaps if you've been somewhere else in pastoral France, to close your eyes and say, okay, I can feel the evocation of being in the vineyard. But I've never been to Cognac in February, but I've been twice in January. And it's about as peaceful place as I've been, including once with great, just gentle snow flurries, which we've had off and on here in Brooklyn and Queens the last several weeks. And what I love about it, and what I'm sure you know about the timestamp of Cognac from field to bottle or field to glass, is that many of these elements by history are so timed. And then if you're in Cognac now in February, which we'll see, we'll visit Cognac today, of course, that while it's very quiet on the outside, that inside there's great activity and purposeful activity. And so in that sense, I guess it's now just after 5 o'clock in Cognac. So a good time to share this experience, but that I'm also daydreaming of the food. And for those that have been, I'm a seafood nut. So, this time of year, the oysters, the snails, I remember being, I'm sometimes, particularly after drinking, will get a little bit ahead of myself. And I remember sitting in Cognac at a restaurant, and I don't think it was even menued, but you could see pictures in the seafood case of escargot. Well, we know that word, of course. Nope, my good friend from Brooklyn, it's not escargot in Cognac, it's kegui, a little land snail. And to be honest, in my middle age, I appreciate having, I hope, a great sense of humility, because I will say the things incorrectly, and I want to be correct, but I'll say them incorrectly, approach putting my foot in my mouth, and then it begets a wonderful conversation. So I learned of these little land snails. Thank you, Jermaine, for a little smile, maybe at my benefit. But things like that, or having oysters with sausage and a compound butter of seaweed. Who knows? Something fun that we can taste. I don't know if you're like me in semi-lockdown. We've been tasting the same things in my household without a specific schedule here. We just try to laugh at best at it. So we have really a great cast of characters here to take us, myself included, on a wonderful journey, literally and live in Cognac today. I believe David is here. David Buello from BNIC, who's I've learned many things from, one of the great Cognac educators. Raphael Martineau, a distiller in his own right. Hervé from Cellar Master from Bosch Gabrielson, and who's on my screen in the top left quadrant. I always like to make this a game show almost. Germaine Canto, one of the owners and great bar characters, I would say, in the world, from Bar Louise, so that we can share a cocktail together. We were just talking, like many of us, his bar is closed at the moment. My bar has little outdoor service. We're trying to pace along, but just so that we can share a moment as as loving bartenders and a human experience here to take us on a little time travel to an experience today in the evening here, cocktail hour in Cognac. So we'll have a lovely time together and a chance to share some experiences and hopefully some questions along the way. Feel free to interject. And yes, I'm hungry too, Stephanie. So enjoy. And we'll start here just to take you to the time and place. Breathe, exhale. Here we go. Ah, that's my place. It used to be so easy. You can wave, Jermaine. For those who haven't been, you know, Cognac is not too hard. It's harder to get to today, boy, but it's not so hard to get to in normal times from Paris by train, or perhaps if you've been so fortunate to be by Bordeaux. But these are some of the places we'll travel to today, and I look forward to our friends specifically in Cognac to give us a real timestamp, including what's the weather like today? Are there people out on the street? What are people doing in these times in Cognac, just as it would be relative to what we're doing from the United States in our homes at the moment? So with that, it's my pleasure to welcome David Buello from BNIC. Hello, David.
Hello, Alan. Thank you. Congratulations to all our winners. I'm David Boileau. As Alan said, I'm Cognac ambassador for the BNIC, and I'm very pleased to welcome you, unfortunately virtually. We wait in person next time, next month, we hope so. And we prepare for you a marvelous journey with a distiller who have his own vineyard, and a meeting with a master seller. Enjoy, and do not hesitate to have questions for us.
But what is exciting to have specifically with Raphael is he is a distiller in the Bombois region, and as a distiller myself, it's always exciting to share the experience from a technical standpoint. We'll give him a moment here to work on technical difficulties. It's not filler for me, as I was saying, you know, from a distilling standpoint, I've always been fascinated. I think my first trip to Cognac was about 12 years ago, and it's the still itself that so impressed upon me. Also for the fact that if you compare it to American distilling parlance, you know, the rules and regulations to distill in the United States, you know, could fill a little pamphlet. Yes, you need regulations and laws and rules, and they're local and federal, et cetera. The EU rules are, for Cognac, are a Bible thick. Can you hear me, Raphael? It says he's connecting. And just that these have lingered for over a century has always been impressive upon me, but that there is, even with all of the rules and regulations, an effort for efficiency in production. It goes back to the timestamp of from the field, harvest, and into production methodology. Raphael, are you there?
So is everybody like with us now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome in Cognac area. I'm Raphael. I'm a vintner and a distiller, and I'm the 5th generation who took over the family business. So we are here at our distillery. So just outside the distillery, you have the vineyard. We're not really lucky. We have so much sun, so so you probably see the vineyard here, because as you all remember, cognac is made with Uni Blanc, and which is the major grape here in cognac. Once we've harvested mid-September of mid-October, we then put the cognac in those tanks, and to ferment the wine to produce a white wine. The particularity of the white wine, I'm sorry about the video. I'm not very professional. Hello?
We can hear you, Raphael, but we just lost your video.
Okay. Well, so as I said, we do ferment the wine, and the particularity of the cognac is we need a very acidic wine. Now,
Raphael, your video may be on stop or hold. If you might just check on your phone.
the point where, okay,
go.
here we are. Do you see the video? Hello?
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay. So here we are. So in the distillery now. The distillery. So just before, the white wine is very acidic, very low alcohol. It's between 9 to 10 degrees of alcohol. And then the wine has a particularity, is a very high acidity. We need a high acidity because the September and the wine has to preserve itself on its own. We are not allowed to use any preservatives. So that's why it's very acidic. Once the wine is harvested and done early October, we are able to start the distillation process. The distillation process takes place in like 2 batches. The first one, we distill the wine and then get a production of brouillis. So the wine is, as I said, between 9 and 10 degrees of alcohol, and we obtain a brouillis, which is about 30% of alcohol. And so in here, you have kind of a vat, a pot, a copper pot, and actually converted one into an office desk. So that's what it looks like. We put the wine in here, it's distilled, it gets to the boiling point, and then the vapors go all the way to the top. And in here, you have like a kind of a column in cold water. And then you have the vapors who condense into alcohol, and then we get the brouillis. And this, on the next day, we do a second batch with the same process, and then we obtain the eau de vie. That's when we take away the heads and the tails and only keep the heart of the eau de vie. The part here in the middle is what we call a chauffe-vin. And actually, in the ancient times, you know, they were already concerned about energy savings. And so we put the following batch of wine in here so that the vapors from the first batch already preheat the wine of the next batch. So that's how we make some energy savings. Our distillery is typical because actually we have like small pots in here. In the second part, you know, those are small units, smaller units. They are half the size of the one we just saw, which is actually quite good for quality. So that's okay. Sorry. Yeah. Would you have, any other questions? Things I should.
I have a few
over
questions,
again, or-
Raphael, but I'll see if any of our group might have any questions first. if anyone does, please feel free. You can put it into the chat, or frankly, we're such an intimate group. If you just want to go off mute and ask Raphael a question directly. Otherwise, Raphael, I was very curious of a couple of things. One, you just started to mention about, I believe, the two different sizes of
Yes.
pot stills that you use. And if you could add a little more detail, what is it about the smaller size that you feel is so good for production? And then what is
So
one other question related, if I may, how many, specifically, how many pot stills do you have? And what is the time period that all of these have come into existence at your family's distillery?
Questions.
Back to you, Raphael, if you can hear me.
okay, so I'm here about like sorry, you hear me?
Yes,
Do you hear me?
we can hear you, Raphael.
Okay, very good. So those ones are 12.5 hectoliters, which are about 330 gallons, and the other ones are just double the size. What's very important during the distillation process, there are a lot of like what we call also chemical reactions going on, and so the copper, everything is made out of copper. Everything which is in touch with the wine and the eau de vie during the distillation process is in copper. And this is a kind of helps some chemicals reactions, besides the fact that it conveys the heat very well. So, and in the small pots here, the ratio in between the surface of copper in contact with the liquid is more important in the small pot than in the big pots. And so the more contact with the copper you have, the better quality you will get. We have here 18 distilling pots, which represents, we have like actually 8 small ones. There are just 2 different sizes, but they are small also. So 8 small ones and 10 big ones. As I said, I'm the 5th generation, and it all started back in the mid 1800s.
Terrific. And I'm wondering, just we're in an attempt to be as evocative as possible today, specifically whether it's from the field outside or in the distillery here in your season of distilling, if you could talk a little bit about the sounds, whether there's an environmental from nature outside, for those of us that may never have been in Cognac in the middle of February, or the smells in the distillery in this active season, would be wonderful to get from your perspective.
Well, right now, I mean, as we saw, the weather is actually a little bit crazy all over the world, and it's all not our American friends who are going to say differently with what just happened in Texas. So it's the same way here. We had like 3 weeks ago a very cold wave front, and now it's almost spring. It's outside. It's 20 degrees Celsius, and so in here in the right now, which is actually a very good feeling in the winter when it's really cold outside. In terms of smell, we have like during the day it evolves a lot because we are distilling here. We've started to distill on the 5th of October, and we will end by the 30th of March. By law, we are not allowed to distill after the 31st of March. Main reason for that is that we are not allowed to use any preservatives in the wine. So it's the natural acidity of the wine which is going to keep the wine during the whole winter. And so as soon as spring starts again, the wines might get bad. So we have to finish before end of March. And so during the day, we have like different smells, you know. During in the morning, that's when we are distilling what we call the bonne chauffe. So the heart of the cognac, the eau de vie. And there you have like very flowerful, very nice aromas of like the spirits aromas. And then in the afternoon, it's like more neutral, because also what we're distilling has a lower alcohol content, so the environment is not as impacted by the smells.
And are you finished distilling for today, for this Wednesday? Are you done?
No, we distill here. It's working night and day. I mean, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So as soon as, for example, in here, let me show you up, sorry. Okay, you see in here, that's it's just finished for today. We had like wine in there. I mean, actually we had like the brouillis during the day in here. And so we did the cycle of the day, which just ended, and we reloaded the same vat with wine now. And actually, you know, it's heated. That's also a point. It's heated by gas.
Right. So
Everything
by
is
law,
heated.
it must be an open flame for the Charente pot still.
That's what we call the Cahier des Charges, it's open flame. And actually in the past, it used to be done with a charcoal. And this is when we kept one old, it's like a ventilator to activate the flames of the charcoal. But today, everything is done with gas. So and as I said,
go ahead.
We started distilling on the 5th of October. And here we have activity night and day, 7 days a week since the 5th of October until the 30th of March. So at my job, for example, is every day I do taste the everyday production, and when we do also the cut between the head and the tails, or the head and the bonne chauffe, so the heart, and then when we do the cut in between the heart and what's coming next, les secondes.
And another somewhat technical question, Raphael, is for your smaller pot stills, are you using them for specific grapes or from specific vineyards on your property or cru? When you
No, you have everything is distilled in the same pot still, and we have actually only one grape variety, which is the option of Paul Blanche, which is the old grape variety here in Cognac. But right now it's mainly Uni Blanc, and we use the small pot still to make, I mean, we do most of the second distillation in this. So during the night, we produce only brouillis, so we load only wine in the evening, so the heating during the night, or the cycle which happens during night, is producing only brouillis. And then we produce the eau de vie, the cognac, only during the daytime, and mainly in the smaller pot still.
So you will mix batches from different stills of the brouillis, and that gets finished in the smaller pot stills. I might suggest, Raphael, we seem to have a better signal when you were outside. That might make it clearer to hear you.
Okay.
And if you can still hear me, I'll ask another question from a distillation and production side of things. If you might take a moment to further explain, this is one of the most fascinating parts for me from the history, your implementation or your usage of using your preheater to
Yes.
for efficiency. And I assume, has your family always employed that technique?
Yes, and I mean, pretty much everybody is using that in the cognac process. So those preheat. Nowadays, we have also other technologies to preheat the wine. So those units there in the center here on the top, or in here the one on here, those are the traditional one, because actually, as you can see, I don't know if you, I might get a little closer, but you know, in here, actually, you see there are like two tubes, one going outside on the back, and in there, there's a tube flowing through. And it's when the vapors go through that tube, which it preheats the wine.
Thank you. I mean, I'm always been fascinated because I don't know anywhere else in the world by tradition that uses that design standpoint for that level of efficiency.
But I think nowadays we all do that for also environmental purposes and
Right.
things like this. I think back then they were doing this because like they needed to load less charcoal, and it was like not as easy as it is today to
Right.
heat the wine. They had to bring either the wood or the charcoal. So every savings of energy was welcome.
And Raphael, we see, your colleague in the front
Yes.
view of the photo. How many people work in the distillery this season?
There are 2 person every day. So it's a team of 2, and so they have shifts like this, but there are always like 2 people in the distillery.
And so
Night and
from
day.
the tanks that you showed us outside, that the wine can get pumped into the distillery, into the stills?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. Here's another interesting question. This is unique. Megan is asking that she's heard that some distillers in Cognac only smell their products for readiness or for finish. She's asking, is this true? And if so, why isn't tasting part of the process? I don't know what you might employ for personal.
You mean that
satisfaction.
some people just do the smelling for?
I believe so. Have you ever heard that before?
Well, what we do during the day is like, when we need to do the cut in between the head and the heart, and in between the heart and after the tails, all this is done only by smell, because like, the heads, what we call the heads, are coming out of the distilling pot at alcohol content, which is almost at 80%. So tasting this is complicated. Whereas when you smell it, you definitely very well can find the different aromas coming. And that's when you have to do the cut, because the first particular, it's almost very chemical. And then at some point you have to do the cut because you come on more floral aromas. And so the nose is enough to do that cut.
Thank you. That's fascinating. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Jenna says, I miss France. I miss France too. What are you having for dinner tonight?
Oh, well, I don't know yet. Something probably very good, but like.
We're trying to daydream here. If we were there with you, what we would be having for dinner?
Well, we could have sorry. For example, for lunch we had like fish. I had fish, but we had like ray. I don't know how to say that in English. And well, we come over and I'll figure out a very good menu.
I hope so. Yes, thank you. So it's skate in English, like a skate wing.
Skate.
Yes. Well, I can't thank you enough. I guess I'll ask one final question is, for pleasure, how often do you drink your own cognac?
It's for pleasure. We every weekend I drink cognac.
Okay, on the weekends. Very good. Well, we
And
wish
I had
you.
no COVID. I had no COVID, and you should know that the area of Cognac is one of France having the less cases of COVID. So I don't know if it's related, but might be.
It's interesting. I was reading an article in the paper yesterday. A 105-year-old woman thinks she recovered from COVID because she has 9 gin-soaked raisins every day. I'm sure the
Well,
same could apply to cognac.
with the eau de vie.
Exactly right. Raphael, I can't thank you enough. Stay safe. Our very best to you and your
Welcome.
family and your
Thank you to
team.
you all. And okay.
Thank you. I again, thanks everyone for bearing with the technical aspects, but even for me, just to be able to see, even if you've never been to cognac, we've all tasted cognac and we've made cognac cocktails, more, in great abundance, I'm sure. And just to have that emotional connection, to be in the distillery with Raphael, I realize the weather, as they described it, is perhaps, and Germain as well, a little strange for cognac in February to be that warm, that bright. But it reminds me also that spring is coming on the East Coast. I see Germain is here with us throughout the course. That it's dark here by 5:30 p.m. in the evening, and so here we are as we approach 6 p.m. in Cognac. That it's still bright out makes me think again.
Do you have
Not in any sense of melancholy, but how wonderful it would be. And I know that I'll be there again one day. But even again, as I said, if you've never been there, just to be able to get a glimpse of those fields and the lifestyle of a farmer distiller is one that's certainly unique, dare I say special. And he seems like a regular guy. What's for dinner? I don't know. I know what I'd like for dinner as a tourist, but so thank you again for the indulgence. Well, our next stop is fascinating in an even more unique regard, I think, from all of our standpoint as spirits aficionados and spirits experts. And that's going to take us, again, we hope without technical challenge, into the cellar and the aspect of cellaring cognac. And obviously we have a great foundation, I think, of information and knowledge that this can take place over decades, over generations, but the contrast and complement of cellaring, from a humid cellar compared, not versus, but compared to a dry cellar, is something that's always fascinated by me. And I'll be honest, it took me a few cycles through, not necessarily visiting, but having the opportunity to taste samples from a humid cellar and to compare them from a dry cellar was really what took the introduction of concept on my palate to say, okay, now I understand whether we're getting greater evaporation of water or of alcohol, to really understand the purposeful differences of why this is so significant in its implementation. And Hervé, are you there? Wave hello. Very good. So as you can see, it's not dusty. It's a beautiful office or cellar room that you're in there. You can go ahead. Oh, I see. Okay, great. We're off of mute. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share some time with you and to hear about your expertise and what you're doing. And if you could, just a moment or two of what life is like for you in these moments, in these times, in Cognac, amidst COVID. We would be grateful for that as well.
Oh, okay. First of all, I'm very grateful for you to attend this meeting, and of course, it's a great pleasure for us to have contact with U.S. citizens. You know, traveling is so difficult at the moment, so it's for us a big pleasure, a huge pleasure to share and to meet together. We are in our labor room in our office at Pache Cognac, and we are a medium-sized family-owned cognac company, classic one, with a lot of strange ideas, but also great roots, very classical roots, with my great-grandfather being the founder, and he founded the company in 1905. So it's now close to 120 years that the company is established. The COVID situation in France is a bit, it's kind of, we are getting used to it in a way, but still there are many cases, and some region of France are more impacted compared to Cognac. So in Cognac, we are not too bad. What we can see is that in the south of France, especially in the French Riviera, Provence and Nice, it's a lot of cases and they have been locked down again, but it's a more local lockdown. So in total, it's not too bad, but restaurants are closed, bars are closed, everything related to what you can enjoy in life is closed. So it's a bit boring, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so in terms of your work at this moment, give us a little, paint a picture, if you will, of what that would entail in terms of what's happening in this moment in time and how it's incorporated into the seasonality of cognac production.
Yeah, now we are heading to end of February, and maybe you know the distillation process is during winter time, starting just after the harvest, which is in general end of September, beginning of October. And we are starting the distillation process, and it has to end of March. So now we are entering the last week of distillation, where we turn the wine that we have been making from the grapes juice into spirit, into eau de vie, which will become the cognac after the aging.
And in terms of that process and in terms of your distillation, your production right now, the level of activity, how many people are working with you? Are you doing, is the tasting apparatus extensive now, or is it a rhythm of process in a more patient manner to produce now, barrel later, and of course, our focus with you today on cellaring?
You know, it's distillation is a very slow process. We have to take some time to make good cognac, and we need some time also to distill. So we have our 150 partners, distillers, who are slowly ending their distillation process in their single estates. And then we will gather all these cognacs into our own cellars, and then our master blender will start the aging process. So it's rather busy because this year has been a very huge year in terms of volumes and quality also. But the huge volumes to distill. And now, I guess most of our distillers will have to wait until end of March to finish the distillation.
And so it's interesting. I'm glad you mentioned the number of distilling partners that you have, 150, I believe you said. Is there a process for you to evaluate the spirits as they are given to you? How many people are part of the team, if you will, that evaluate the spirits that will be indicative of what you might decide to put into different cellars?
We are actually going to discuss that with Jean-Philippe, our master blender, who is
Terrific.
collecting the samples. And we will, of course, evaluate the samples of just distilled cognac according to some specification that we gave to all our distillers, and to respect the style and the image of Page Gabrielsen.
Well, great. And one last thing before we say hello to Jean-Philippe.
Yeah.
What are in the drawers around your archive room? What are in those drawers?
Actually, this is what we call the label room. And as you can see, it's
Very good.
label. So it's not, I'm sorry, it's not hidden bottles, it's just.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you.
So let me introduce you to Jean-Philippe, our master blender. Hi.
Good evening, Jean-Philippe.
Good evening. So welcome in my laboratory. Yes, in that room, I taste all the cognac we select before the aging process. I mean, those last days, we received those cognac just distilled from Framboise, Grand Champagne, Petit Champagne. And I decide to select those cognac before we put them in the oak caps. The other part of the job here is to control all the cognac we have in our cellars. We have several cellars around cognac. So minimum once a year, I taste each of the cognac we have in barrels. So I taste about 500 different glasses. Then the last key point here is to select the cognac ready to be blended to make the three course VSOP, XO, Page Gabrielsen. So I make a blend in those small tubes, and then I control the quality of that blend if it in the continuation of the quality of the three course, the XO fin champagne, and any other quality. That's very important to be regular in quality. Every year the vintage produce different qualities, so every year we have to make a blend in the right connection with the regular quality we have decided to produce here in Page Gabrielsen.
If I may, Jean-Philippe, if I may ask a question, how did you become a master blender? Or if I may, how did you become introduced to the profession of blending cognac?
Actually, there are no school to be master blender. So I'm born in a distillery, actually. My family own a vineyard in Petit Champagne and own a distillery. So since many generations, my family is on that vineyard since more than 4 centuries. So it's really a culture in my family. So I've always used to taste with my father, with my grandfather. So when I joined the company, Page Gabrielsen, I continue to taste the cognac and to have the curiosity and the pleasure to make blends.
I love all of those adjectives. I wonder, even for pleasure, do you use those skills for any other spirits or for wine or spices?
Yeah.
How does that come into influence the work that you do every day? I think you said you taste 500 samples every day?
No, once a year.
Once a year. I was going to say that's a lot.
Every day it's 10 to 20.
Okay, very good. Very good.
And mostly I just smell. Just with my nose, I can find 95% of the quality of the cognac. Of course, I have to really taste when the blend is finished to know more about the texture, if it's smooth, round, aggressive, or not. But thanks to the nose, I can really find all the quality of the cognac.
What time do you start in the daytime? What time do you begin?
I start early, but I test just before the lunch and just before the dinner. So it's around, in France, around 12 a.m. and 6 p.m.
Do you find there's a particular time of day where your senses are most awake?
Of course, yes. When you are hungry, your body needs to eat something. So your nose is really sensitive to any flavors.
What is the proof that you're taking aroma and flavor from your samples? Is it consistent? The proof of the spirit, the percentage of alcohol in the samples.
The samples are, I have two steps when I taste the cognac. I smell them at full strength, so it's around 65 to 70. And then I add some water because the water opens the flavors. So it's necessary to test in two steps. The first one at full strength, and the second step, adding water.
Very good. And I don't know if there's an opportunity to see it with you. At the very least, I would love to hear your explanation and then the influences of humid compared to dry cellaring, so that we can better understand those challenges and opportunities.
The best is to go down to the cellar to answer to the question.
This is great. Thank you.
Regarding the cellar, it's a good question. Regarding the wet cellar and dry cellars, it's the key point of the process. And regarding the goal, when I make a blend, I always think about quality, the style. If I want to make a cognac on the dry style with quite strong alcohol power, I mean, if I want something extremely strong in taste, I prefer to age the cognac in a dry cellar. If I want to make a blend, a finished blend with smoothness, round, quite easy to drink, enjoying mostly the aromas and have a very discreet alcohol pour, I prefer to age the cognac in humid cellar.
And what are the characteristics that you are looking for from those two different attitudes of cellaring?
I mostly prefer the humid cellar. I want to extract the best of the aromas, the ground of the Petit Champagne, Grand Champagne, Bordeaux. So all those flavors, I think we enjoy much easier if the alcohol is light in taste. So that one of the key points is to age the cognac in very humid cellar. It makes a slow reduction of the alcohol, and in the same time, it reduces the strongness of the alcohol.
And where are you right now?
C'est tout.
Well,
Vous êtes où? Dans les chais.
so we are in a small cellar, but it's a cellar for visit.
I see. Okay.
Many cellars are around cognac in a very humid place. Of course, here it's a little bit too dry for aging process. But the interest of that small cellar is to show the different kind of barrel we have. We need new casks and we need old casks. At the beginning of the aging process, we have to extract the tannin and the complexity of the wood, but just at the beginning of the process. And then we mostly need old barrels. very old barrels.
And so
Just to let the cognac concentrate years after years, losing 2 to 3% of alcohol every year.
and this perfect segue to a question that has been asked, Jean-Philippe, that is cognac moved from cask to cask through its aging lifespan?
Yeah.
Is there any comparison to a Solera process, or are
No.
barrels completely emptied so that the
Yeah.
liquid is transferred to a different or new cask?
Now, the interest of to move from one barrel to the other barrel is to add oxygen, to oxidate the cognac faster. But if we do that too much, we have too much evaporation, too much, we go too fast. You know, in the cognac process, we need time. We want to reduce very, very, very slowly the years after years. We want a concentration very, very slowly. The Solera process is going very fast, too fast for the cognac.
And if you could show us a little bit closer to any specific barrel so that you could tell us a little bit more about the oak, the specific wood that you're using.
In each barrel, we have only one vintage and one area. For example, in that one, there are Fin Bois from 1967. Here in that one, we have Grand Champagne, 1989. This one is a Petit Champagne, 2004. We never make a blend and then age that blend for many years. We want to explore the best of each vintage in each area of cognac.
And in a similar fashion, would you tell us about the Paradis at Gabrielson?
Yeah, we can talk about the Paradis. Just a few words, please.
Okay.
Something very unique in cognac. Vache Gabrielson is the only maison de cognac who have aged the cognac in American oak. It's extremely complex to make a blend of different maturation. I mean, we mature the cognac in the French oak for the complexity of the French tannins, and then we age that cognac in American oak for the richness of aromas of the oak coming from the States. It makes a very special taste, and yeah, I have to say we are the only company who have take that risk to create a special cognac with that wood. But the process to select the wood and to make the barrels extremely different from the process to do that for the bourbon or for the other product.
It's fun for us to also share in the thought of innovation of cognac that has such a centuries-old tradition. So that it's just fun.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
I assume it seems by your expression that it's fun for you as well.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So just a look on the Paradise. So welcome to the Paradise.
Thank you.
And the place where we age, we store the cognac. We doesn't age the cognac because on the glass, nothing happened. There is no oxidation, there is no concentration. So when I select a very, very special cognac, when the cognac is moving to the top of its quality, before he loses freshness, I keep that cognac to put in those big damjans.
And these are single barrel examples, or they are blends?
No,
Not
no, they are
blends at
never
all.
blends. No, I want to keep each vintage, each area.
Very good.
From 1842, from 1902, from 1906. Mostly from the Grand Champagne and some Petit Champagne because they are the best to increase in quality over 50, 60 years. Only the Grand Champagne can be increasing quality after 80 years. So today we have in our barrels, in our cellars, some 80 years Grand Champagne. I'm sure in the next 20 years, they will increase in quality.
Well, Jean-Philippe, thank you so much. It's wonderful to hear about your history as well as the work that you do at Bosch Gabriel Son. It's fascinating. And in the context of learning about your history, it's also my standard question in our session today. If you know, what will you be having for dinner this evening?
I'm not sure, but I think I'll will enjoy to have some American as aperitif with salty food. I love that. And then I think we have as a dessert something with the coffee. It's my daughter actually prepared the food tonight, so I don't think I can watch it. But sure, I will have pleasure to finish with XO that we have said.
The very best to you and Hervé and to everyone at Bosch Gabriel Son. Stay well, and I hope that we have the pleasure of sharing a meal with you, with cognac, of course, but I can't imagine anything quite more enjoyable perhaps than to have a plaintive meal with you sometime in the future.
Thank you, Alain.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, damn if that's not a lot of fun. That made my day. I tell you that sincerely. Boy, thank you. Thank you for enjoying that all together. We have the real pleasure, and it makes the most sense to conclude our journey today in a bar, which feels like our bars at home to calamitous degree, but hopefully not for long. And to come back to our good friend, Germain Cantot. Hello, Germain.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm fine.
How is life?
Quiet. Life is quiet, yeah, but it's the same for all of us. So we keep it in patience.
Yeah, that's a good word, to have patience these days. Well, I hope I've had the pleasure of being at the bar with you. I hope, obviously, it's not in the too distant future to be back. Before you begin, I am curious if you could give some, perhaps in your career span, your work span, historical perspective for us as American bartenders who have the pleasure to work with cognac and cocktails. Obviously, it's not always seen to be the obvious case by tradition in cognac or in France. So what is the contemporary interest and attitude of cocktails in general, but also with cognac from your perspective?
That's a good question. And I'm not sure to have the answer, but
there's no wrong answer. It's from you and your customers.
Yeah. From my a big part of my customers come from US, and
right.
Everybody who come in the bar like to drink cognac with cocktail. But at Bar Louise, so Bar Louise opened in 2012, and I came in cognac in 2015 as a bar manager for the hotel. And maybe it was 2 years later, we decided with the hotel to rebuild the bar outside of the hotel on the next corner. But the first time I arrived in Cognac, so in 2015, my question was how I will do with local people and on the same time with foreigners, with visitors. Because bartenders or industry professionals who come from all over the world in Cognac are people who drinks cocktail maybe in New York, in London, in Sydney, and everywhere. So they are expecting a cocktail level, a high level cocktail. And that's also what I was supposed to do in Cognac, because if you come here and you just have a mojito with Cognac at the next bar, it's not representative about what is Cognac in cocktail. So my mission was to get the good point between what visitors want to drink and what local are ready to drink. When I talk about local people, I'm talking about a wine grower, but also worker from Hennessy, Martel, Remy Martin. So, French local people are not in the habit to drink cocktail in New York, in London, and anywhere. So I have to find a good middle between help the local people to discover the Cognac in cocktail and make like a big impression for visitors when they come in Cognac. So my 2 first years was about have a double menu, one for local and one for. It was not exactly like that, but in the menu I have some introduction drinks, low price and easy to understand. And another part of my menu was maybe more expensive cocktail, but with more reflection in the ingredients. I think today, so Bar Louise was the first one in 2012. In 2017, Bar Luciole opened in Cognac, but down the river. And maybe last year or 2 years ago, Martel opened a bar. So now, on the summertime, we are 6 cocktail bars in Cognac. So my vision is moving forward, and I can try to reach the same level about cocktail. And this year, we decide to rebuild the menu. Or I rebuild the menu every 3 months, but the way of the menu, we decide to rebuild it and to focus on the classic cocktail, because all the bars do cocktail and do their interpretation about cocktail. But when we look back in the history, first cocktail, whole cocktail was Sazerac. Sidecars come from the 1920. So old-fashioned was maybe made with Cognac. Sorry, guys. I'm kidding, but
we're chatting in our sort of semi-chat group. For me, when I've always tried to introduce Cognac to people at our bar in Brooklyn, use it as a split base. It's interesting you talk about sidecars and old-fashioned. I like using it as a split base for rye whiskey, but you could do bourbon as well, of course. But when I make a Sazerac and want to give it a different perspective, I'll do a split base of our rye and Cognac.
Yeah, first time I learned about Sazerac was in Sydney at a barber shop. Traditionally, I made Sazerac with rye, and my manager said, "You can do half Cognac." And I was like, "Wow, I can do it." And since I'm in Cognac, I'm only made my Sazerac with Cognac. And in the history, due to phylloxera crisis, whiskey take over Cognac. So it's good to rethink the classic cocktail and not only make classic cocktail. I will make 2 or 3 cocktails with David today quickly because we don't have a lot of time, but if I'm talking about my Sazerac, or if I'm talking about my new menu, the menu we are building at this year, I want to talk about the vineyard, the distillation, the aging, and the oxidation. This 4 step can be imaged by one cocktail. If I take a sidecar, for example, if I have to do a sidecar looking like the vineyard, I need fresh ingredients. I need fresh lemon, and we have a great area in France, Menton, with amazing lemon. So I can do the classic recipe with a fresh French lemon. If I'm talking about sidecar in the distillation process, I like to take Verjus, Cognac, and Pinot de Charente, process in the rotovap, and keep the not the distillation part, but the concentrate part, the part to stay in my balloon with low alcohol, because I evaporate the alcohol with the rotovap. And I serve this just shaken with a dash of a little dash of cognac and triple sec liquor. And I have a sidecar about 7 ABV, 7 degree ABV. So it's more refreshing, but this sidecar has been distilled. And I also use the alcohol, the other part, sorry, I forget in English the word. And I use also that to put in a barrel and age my sidecar.
Okay.
So I can just, with just one classic cocktail, I can talk in 4 different states on my menu.
Well, we would love to virtually make and taste a cocktail with you and David. I'd also, where did you go, David?
Yeah, I would make one.
Because I have a question for David too. The pleasure, I've known David for a good while.
I'm back.
What cocktails do you enjoy with cognac, David?
My favorite one is sidecar. I'm not so different than many people, but I love the freshness of this one, and it's perfect just before dinner to have a perfect palate without another taste with another spirits. Because don't forget, cognac is a spirit based of wine, and to have a perfect dinner with wine after, it's very good to start with a cocktail recipe, simple one with cognac. And yeah, this one is one of my favorites. During the summer, I love Summit because it's very fresh, it's very refreshing. We have some spicy notes, but it's very easy to drink and easy to share. And the most important for me is to share. Cognac, it's a long process to have. We just met before Raphael and Jean-Philippe. They explained perfectly. We need time, and to enjoy a cocktail cognac, you need to take time and to share with a friend of yours. And we hope we can come quickly, because it's very frustrating to be there. It's a good thing to have you, but we prefer to check.
It's not the same. Germain, we wanted you to describe what you're doing. I do want to just give one last, bit of background for me, the opportunity and pleasure I get to learn from people like David and Germain is in their roles, they're extremely well-traveled, certainly more than I am. And so to be able to bring experiences from all these disparate parts of the cocktail universe back to the localization of cognac is always something that's enthusiastic for me to learn from. So, Germain, what exactly are you doing there?
So, I will start with horse's neck. I made some photo shoot for BNIC 2 or 3 years ago, and maybe 6 months ago, and I came into a distillery, and I saw the picture on the wall. I said, "Oh wow, that's nice! I made it with my company and with my photograph." And the picture was the horse's neck, so classic cocktail. And I look at the picture and say, that's easy to make. It's just cognac, ginger ale, Angostura bitters, and lemon zest. How can I? It could be. I think it's too easy for me. I'm sorry, but it's a bit too easy to put in my bar because everyone can do it. But if I want to put on the highlights the classic cocktail, horse's neck, it's a great one because it works pretty well. So I decided to make my home ginger ale, water ginger with spice, and to be colder than the ginger ale. And I want to deliver an experience to my guests. So in front of him, like I do for you, I spark the cognac and my ginger water, just to pour in the glass. So it's just an horse's neck, but my interpretation of the horse's neck, because I like classic cocktail, and I can stick on the classic and not twist it, but think differently. So this one is a horse's neck, and here behind me I have 2 cocktails in Belgium. It's the same one. That's we made a Sazerac with my team. We put in the Belgian, and this one is aged with a oak stick, French oak, middle heat, and this one French oak, no heat. I have 2 other like this, one with intense heat and one with American oak. So I keep the classic recipe, and I let the cocktail age in the time with just a stick of food. Like that, my guests can try the same cocktail with different wood and understand the impact of the barrel, not the barrel like for here, but try to understand the impact of the wood on the cocktail and on the spirit, cognac.
Who's tasting today, you or David?
Both together.
Okay.
we can share. Yeah, time is passed quickly.
David, what are you having for dinner tonight?
Probably something very good. I don't really know what exactly, but something fresh, because it's the winter, but close to the summer. Probably a salad, fresh one, but just before a summit. Yeah.
Good.
For me, will be a birthday cake because my daughter is 4 years old today. So
it's the perfect
theme. Is there a theme for the party?
Yeah.
Thank you very much to be with us, and we just wait for one thing, to welcome you in Cognac. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Stephanie, for the planning of this great event, and cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers indeed. Joyeux anniversaire to your daughter.
See you soon, guys.
Yeah, be well. Be well. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Thank you for everything.
I don't know. Thank you, Alan. Thank you for being such a great host.
Well, it's my pleasure. As I said, for me, the simple joy is just to see bartenders, even 2-dimensionally here. There's not a lot of words. It's calamity. And hopefully, I mean it sincerely, hopefully we'll get through. I don't know where everyone is, literally at the places where they used to work or they still work, and just want to send as much legitimate love to everyone as possible through these times, and to your friends and to your family, and hope we can enjoy company together with those we work with and those we serve in the near term, and most of all, healthy days ahead. So cheers, and thank you very much for just taking the time to participate today.